I'm so sorry for any sort of audio issues that are going on today. At the beginning of the podcast, there was some weird noise. In the middle of the podcast, also another weird noise. I do not know what is going on. I'm gonna try and fix it. I hope it is not as annoying as it is for me. This is just so you know, a one-time thing. I'm so sorry for the audio issues. Hopefully, I'm gonna figure it out. And yeah, just sorry again for any sort of weird noises going on in today's episode. It was all just chaotic. I kind of set up everything last minute, so I'm so sorry for the inconvenience today.
Welcome to today's episode of the Head of Race podcast. I'm your host Maya, and today we are talking about stage 8 of La Vuelta. I feel like today's stage was yet again really exciting. Probably some people might feel like it wasn't as interesting because there weren't any GC gaps in particular, but I feel like today's stage was really entertaining and kind of gave you a look on how some writers might be feeling or the kind of what they're trying to achieve with certain stages. And also today's podcast might be a bit chaotic because I wasn't actually supposed to do it. I was supposed to maybe talk about today's stage a tiny bit tomorrow, but I wasn't gonna do a full-on podcast about today. So apologies in advance if it's a bit over the place, but today I'm kind of doing it out of the blue because I ended up having some time that I wasn't supposed to have. And now, since I have the time, I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the finish. I might not remember everything. I'm just going to talk about the stuff that stuck out in my mind and what I think was the most significant part of today. And today was a pretty interesting stage because we had 5 categorized climbs, which means like there's gonna be quite a lot of selection, maybe time gaps, all of these things are gonna come into play. And everyone was wondering about who's gonna control today. Like no one was really sure. Groupama ended up kind of controlling quite a bit, and Jumbo Visma. I don't feel like Jumbo Visma controlled in particular because of the fact that they wanted to help control, but rather they wanted to win the stage. And it was obvious that they wanted to win the stage. Like I said yesterday, I feel like today's stage was perfect for a rider like Primož. And my prediction ended up being true because I thought it was like the perfect finish for him. I talked about Enric Mas, but then I was like, there's no chance that Enric Mas can win this because the finish is not like a mountaintop finish. They're gonna be descending, which of course already one red flag when it comes to Enric Mas. He's not a good descender. We've seen that a lot with him, that he just is not the best at descending. And I thought also probably the finish itself was just, too flat for him. But I did say Primož, maybe Primož, and Primož did end up winning today's stage. And I was so excited because I'm not talking about biases a lot, but when it comes to who my favorite writer is, I do have to say that I'm probably, a fan of Primož. Like, he's the writer that I like the most. And when it comes to today's stage, it didn't really have any sort of drama up until probably that final climb, which obviously it was just an absolute killer of a climb. It's a 3.8 kilometer hill, but it has a 11.4% average gradient. And we saw the riders at some point were up to 14, 15, 16%, which I just cannot imagine that. It's crazy. Myself, I think the steepest gradient I was ever on was when I was training triathlon, and I think it was in Bukowina, which is in the mountains in Poland. And I don't remember how much it was, but it was like double digits, of course, but I think maybe over 20, but it was just, it was like a 200-meter wall when they were climbing for 3Ks with the gradient being way over like 10%, which is, a gradient where you're not only counting on your domestiques or tactics, you also have to count on just having the power, because this is a climb where if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to survive it. because you can help yourself as much as you like, but if you don't have the legs on a climb like this, that's the end of any sort of GC ambitions for you. A pretty large group ended up forming in the front with a lot of teams having representation, but it seems like the GC teams were like we didn't really they weren't as like they didn't have the need to put anyone in the breakaway. I was really surprised that Jumbo Visma did not put anyone in the breakaway. I thought they maybe could have put someone in there, but then it was like because who could they have? Maybe like a Vulture. I don't know, but of course they're not gonna let Sepp Kuss go in the break because he's on 8 seconds in the GC and he's a good climber. Of course, we all know he's gonna lose time in the TT. He's a domestique. He's not a leader. He's not gonna win the Vuelta, but I mean, I love Kuss. Like, I'm all for GC Kuss. Like, when he was in that red jersey, I was so excited. When he now has been officially, like, crowned the red jersey, I'm just so beyond happy for him because when you're a domestique, you kind of, your whole career is like, and I do believe that if Kuss wanted to leave Jumbo Visma and go to another team and become a leader, I feel like he definitely could do that. I feel like he could do that. But I just think they pay him probably really well because they know how important he is when it comes to their success and how like vital of a part he is of the Jumbo Visma team. So I feel like they would never let him go. But still, I feel like he could go to a bunch of teams and become a really important rider, maybe even a leader. I feel like he could do. It is possible. I feel like he definitely could do that. But he's choosing to stay in Jumbo Visma. But the life of a domestique is not an easy one. Even though I feel like it's painted out to be worse than it is in actuality, because sometimes it's just horrible. Like you're never happy. You always are not. But teams do get excited, teammates, when a rider from their team wins. Of course, you're gonna be the happiest when you win personally. But we've seen time and time again that, for example, when Jonas won, the whole team was just beyond excited. Val was really happy for him. And even though the media tries and create this narrative of Val being a selfish guy, that he's just this absolute monster that only wants to win for himself. This is one of those issues that I had with the Netflix series. I feel like it was... By the way, I'm going to just throw... Because today's episode is not as prepared, so I might talk about the finish for not too long. Because I kind of wasn't watching it. I was watching the finish, but I like to sometimes maybe prepare some notes or something like that. So today might not be as polished, but I'm gonna get into like a off topic, which is a Netflix series. And I feel like one of the big things that I did not like about the Netflix series, because I do think it was perfect for kind of getting people into cycling that are not big into cycling. Just kind of explaining the basics, teaching them the most basic things that you need to know when you turn on a Tour de France stage, or when you turn on any sort of race, when you're watching on the telly. You should get those little bits, but if you don't get them, you might just not have that much of a great experience watching. But so I think they did that really well. But my issue is, I feel like they created, when a TV series, it's a fact series or it's a fictional series, you always need a villain. And I feel like they really took Val Van Aert and created him out to be this awful, selfish guy, which of course they kind of did make up for it in the later episodes when they, showed that he helped Jonas on different stages, on the Ottercam stage, when he helped Jonas drop Pogacar and basically drop Pogacar, without even Jonas being in the front. But still, I feel like kind of at that point, there's a saying in Polish, the coffee already has been spilled, whatever. So it's kind of you create him to be this villain guy who just wants to win no matter what. Which, of course, he's an athlete, he's a professional cyclist, he's gonna want to win. but I do feel like Val definitely has a part in him. He sacrifices a lot. He's an exceptional writer. For example, when you have a guy like Matthew Vanderpool, which of course they're gonna get compared to it's a natural thing that a guy like Matthew Vanderpool and Wout van Aert are gonna get compared because they have a cyclocross background. They've been racing against each other. They're a pretty similar age, but still, they're really different when it comes to like being the rider type because of course Matthew's never gonna climb like Wout. It's obvious, but then you can say Wout is never gonna be as good of a one-day racer like Matthew. So what I'm trying to say with this, when you have a rider like Matthew, he doesn't have to take those sacrifices. He can just ride for himself. Yes, he has a problem. I do think that Matthew Van Der Poel, of course, he has a worse team, but still, he doesn't need to take those sacrifices that a guy like Wout has to take, because he's getting tired. He's going in the breakaways, doing all of the work, because he needs to basically count every effort perfectly because he needs to be at the right place at the right time. When a team like Jumbo Visma puts Wout van Aert in a breakaway, they're expecting him to try and help Jonas maybe on the descent because he's a big guy. He can descent really well. Even though this year Jonas really, like, at some point I thought he was descending even better than Van Aert. I feel like he could have maybe even descended faster without Van Aert. But besides the point, even, you're going to want Van Aert to pull, like do a hard pull and help Jonas in the mountains as a satellite rider, which I'm going to explain all those different terms in a future episode podcast. But for now, you want to use him as a satellite rider. And a rider like a Matthew doesn't have to do that. So I feel like creating him out to be a villain is just the weirdest thing. Because the guy is sacrificing a lot. He's not only riding for himself. And the Tour de France, I do feel like he sacrifices a lot of chances for himself. Of course, the team works for him when they need to. But still, he's wasting energy when a guy like Jasper Philipsen, he just rides the mountain stages. And he just has to like get through them. And a guy like Van Aert, he's not resting on those days. He's going to be working. He's going to be thinking. The team needs him. But I don't even know how I got to this whole tangent. But back to what I was saying. I don't even know what I was saying. But, back to the stage. I think I was explaining dominant mistakes, and I don't know. I don't even know how I got to this point. A pretty large breakaway created today. I honestly thought they were going to get to the finish. But with like 20-something, 30 years ago, it was obvious that they were going to catch them. But at some point, I did think that's a pretty strong breakaway. I thought they maybe could have done something. They put Castroviejo in the breakaway again, and I do not know why. This stage was just too... Because I feel like Ineos are trying to maybe, grab whatever stage wins or anything they can. Because Geraint Thomas said in an interview that he has pain in his legs and like his knees. And, Bernal's lost time, Arisman crashed. It's kind of this whole team is looking like they're trying to grab onto whatever kind of falls, I guess. And the Castroviejo break, I don't know, it was really interesting. I'm just looking at who was exactly in the breakaway, just trying to catch some things. I feel like just looking at this, I feel like this was a breakaway that maybe could have arrived to the finish, but clearly Jumbo-Visma wanted to win the stage. Even Rui Costa said in an interview after the stage that it was they thought that maybe Jumbo could have not pulled as hard. They maybe could have let them arrive to the finish, but they really wanted to win the stage. So I guess they did what they had to do. And kind of not even gonna get into who was I guess pulling, FGJ was doing all the work. Main things that I can think of, what I thought was weird was Almeida and Ayuso positioning. I thought Ayuso was positioned like by when the riders were at the bottom of the climb, like the final climb. I thought, why is he there? Like, he was positioned in such a bizarre way. Like, he was right at the back of the group. when, like, this is a really hard climb. It's obvious that there was going to be people losing wheels, losing time, and you have a guy like Ayuso who I think he had a possibility of winning this stage. Of course, I thought, I had Primoz and Remco higher up the ranking of who I thought could win this stage, but still, like a guy like Ayuso could have won this stage, and I was so weirded out with his positioning because, with Almeida, it's always like a weird thing because he's never really high up when it comes to positioning. Also, his riding style, he's never, he'll know. It's like a meme by now on like cycling Twitter that Almeida's riding style is just bizarre. Like, not bizarre, but it's like, he's going to be losing wheels, he's going to be not riding right behind because he's never really responding to attacks. Like, he's not that adamant to respond to attacks. He kind of does his own watts. He knows what's, the right thing for him, which this kind of reminds me of like a Geraint Thomas in the 2022 Tour. He was never really that, he did respond to some of the attacks of like a Pogacar and like a Jonas, but there were a lot of times where he just kind of like sat down and he did his own watts, and he reached Pogacar and Jonas 30 seconds later, but he wasn't doing all the bursts. You know what I mean? And that's like a rider like Almeida. He kind of like slides back. I saw a tweet of someone that's like, I could see Almeida dropping with like 30K to go, and he would still manage to be like third on the stage, which is so funny. It's so like, it's true. Like, you always think, yeah, he's dropped, and then he kind of like reappears somewhere. But if that's what suits him, I feel like we shouldn't hate it. Not everyone is going to be dynamic like Pogacar. Not everyone is going to be aggressive. It's obvious that they're going to, adapt their own styles. So I feel like whatever works for him. Because, of course, he's a great rider. He's one of the best riders in the world. Why not just let him do his thing? And then at the bottom of the climb, Quickstep were pulling pretty hard. Like they did a really hard tempo because you could see it like 2-3Ks to go to the top. To the top, Martinez was dropped. By that point we knew Sepkus was into red because no matter, I didn't think like he looked like he was gonna get dropped, so I was like, he's gonna be in the red. Obviously, I was celebrating. I was like screaming like, GC Cuz, like, yes, Cuz is in the red. I'm so excited. The guy is finally, getting something. And I feel like, yeah, I was really excited for him. But Lenny Martinez did get dropped. Although I thought he put up a really great fight. Like, he really worked. He really showed out. I feel like he kind of grit his teeth and really showed true class because the guy's so young. Like, he's so young. And he's showing really, like, amazing character. I feel like this is a really good look for him. And like I said, Quickstep were doing a really hard tempo. I was like 99% sure Remco was gonna do a early attack, which then I thought that would be really stupid. I didn't think like this is a stage for like an early attack. Like 2.3Ks to go, I saw his face and I thought maybe he's gonna do something here because we've seen Remco be the type of rider to do like really early attacks, but nothing really came out of that one. Although he did kind of like do a bit of a tempo. He, reduced the group a little bit. He went to the front and then Kuss attacked, which I thought was brilliant. I thought it was really entertaining just to kind of, see what he's gonna do. Putting him like Jumbo Visma putting Remco under pressure. I thought that was a really interesting thing to see. I honestly thought Jonas was gonna get dropped, which sounds so weird, but I really thought at some point that Jonas was gonna get dropped. He looked pretty miserable, like on the climb, and I was thinking like the guy does not look that great on this climb, honestly. And Almeida, I don't know how he managed to like not lose 30 seconds today. I do not know how he did that. Because he was like losing the wheel, and like I said, again, his riding style, bizarre already, but still, I thought he was gonna maybe lose a bit more time by the way he was riding, and he looked just so tired. oh my god, he looked like he was just, trying to push through this. It was like the typical pain face on him. And then we saw basically at the top of on the mountain, like on top of the mountain. Yeah, I guess I can say that. Remco was the first to arrive to the top. No attacks from the Jumbo team, from the UAE team. Uh, I really was thinking that Ayuso probably wasted some energy today by the way that he was positioned at the bottom of the climb. Like I said, he was like almost the last guy. Even the commentators were saying that his positioning is really bad for a climb like this when there's going to be a lot of reducing in the grooves because it's a really steep climb. It's not going to be a really dynamic kind of climb. They're going to be going really slow, really abruptly, and that's going to throw you off because you're going to need to, push a really hard, like a really high amount of watts without any sort of, speed. So it's one of the worst possible climbs you can get dropped on by not having enough power, but by getting like blocked and making up the unnecessary time. But he did end up not really losing any time, which I told my boyfriend, this guy's a beast. Like, yeah, of course, like the main topic of this Vuelta is like a Remco or a Primož or Jonas, but Ayuso was a freaking beast. Like, the guy's so young and he's so incredibly talented. Like, you could never tell that he's so, like, I know he's been riding for a while, but he's kind of a fresh face for the professional peloton and like the top guys. And you can never tell by the way he's acting, by the way he's riding, by the way how he's so composed. So I feel like he's really putting on a performance of, I am young and I'm not the most experienced, but I can do something here. And I thought the guy looked great. So that's why I also am kind of frustrated by a situation like this when something so minor, like position, maybe not minor, it's not minor, but something so not as hard to control in a reduced group like this could put you out of like contention for maybe a podium spot or something like that. Because I don't feel like the podium is locked up. You never know, because Jonas has not looked inevitable. Because when you're watching the tour normally, you see Jonas and you're like, the guy's, he's gonna lose like maybe some bonus seconds, or maybe he's gonna lose some time on like a punchy climb or like a punchy finish to like a guy like Pogacar. But you're still thinking in the back of your head, you just give him one of those high altitude long climbs or some sort of mountainy time trial, and it's gonna take some time and it's inevitable. I thought this year, watching the tour, I didn't feel like it was like, that he looked, yeah, he looked kind of okay, but not really. I feel like he's strategic about this. And he was. I feel like he was, and so that's why I think the podium's not locked up, because I do not feel like Jonas right now is the same as Jonas during the tour. I'm seeing some cracks in his armor. He doesn't look as, of course, rested. Obviously, he just did a tour which he won, and also right after training, it's all like heavy loads basically. And but although I do still feel like he's Jonas. He's the two-time winner of the Tour de France. You can never count a guy like him out. But still, you kind of want to gain those little seconds and not lose them due to poor positioning. That's what I kind of mean with this. But I still do feel like I am, of course, rooting for Primož, but Jonas might have something for the second or third week, because I feel like he's going to get better by the weeks. Like, he's going to be really strong in those last two, like in the third week. But still, I am rooting for Primož. Like, for example, him winning the tour will probably be the best day of my life. Imagine how I felt on the Giro time trial. Like I was the happiest person in the world probably. So and also I think I might have crashed today, so that's not great. Maybe that's why he was, a bit not feeling the best. And we start kind of arriving to the finish. We're like 1K to go after the descent, which Chris descended really well because he lost some time with the climb, but then he kind of was like right back with the guys, and also Soler and Almeida. They made up a lot of time. Like I thought, wow, especially because he freaking made up so much time. Shout out to Chris again. He has just been proving he's class, like absolute monster on the bike. The guy is just like he's this ray of sunshine. He's always smiling. He's the nicest person, but he's a monster on the bike. I feel like everybody appreciates that though. He has a lot of fans. We've seen everyone was going insane when he basically got the red jersey today and when he won the stage. So we arrived to we end the descent and we're kind of on this like uphilly. It wasn't really like flat. There was still some, it was a bit of like a few percent up on the finish. And Remco's in the front. He attacked first. I saw someone say that he didn't think they were sprinting for the win. I don't know if someone was like joking or he actually didn't know because he was really frustrated after the stage. Like we saw him kind of like being like frustrated. It didn't seem like he was angry because he lost. It seemed rather like something frustrated him. So maybe that's true. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he thought something else. I don't know. Whatever. And also Primož said, we thought the finish was going to look a little different. So maybe there was actually something. He thought maybe something was going to be a little different. But whatever. I'm getting ahead of myself here. And Remco attacks first, which Primož was in a better situation. He's behind Remco. He can respond to the attack, and he does. He kind of goes in front of him, does his, push, and he's the winner of the stage. And God Almighty, Primož Roglič celebrated winning a stage of not a grand tour, but like a cycling stage of any race. Because it's kind of been this weird thing this year, especially, where Primož just kind of crossed the line, and he was just, stopping his power meter, and he just like, yeah, my job's done here. It's so like, and today he actually celebrated, which I feel like maybe there was something on his like mind. Maybe he felt like, maybe I don't have this. Maybe this was kind of a relief, and that's why he was so excited. Because sometimes when you're like, I don't know if I have this, when you have that moment of reassurance, you're gonna get really excited. And I feel like today maybe it was that kind of moment for him. I don't know. But he was so happy. Like, he was walking up to, like, the warm down, place where they have their trainers. And he was so happy. He was, like, hugging everybody. He was, like, waving to everyone. And then on the podium, of course, he did the, ski jumping. In Polish, we say telemark. I don't know if that's the same in English, but he did that. And he was so happy. He was like waving. He was throwing up thumbs ups, and he was so excited. I was so excited too. Like, I love the guy, one of my favorite riders in the peloton, and I was really excited for him too. But you can see maybe there was some sort of mental thing when he was kind of worried. Maybe I don't know. When he maybe lost the third stage, was third, which was pretty good for him, like for the type of rider he is. When he lost it, maybe he was like, maybe he got worried that not everyone thinks he has it against like a Remco on the finish like that. And he proves them wrong today. Absolute class by him. Loved how he thought it out. Loved how he attacked. Like I said yesterday, I thought he was gonna win the stage. I don't know where I got that mask from. The prediction of mask was not as weird if they would have been finishing on the mountaintop, but they didn't. They were descending, which already by that point I should have been like, they're descending. Moss is not gonna take this if it's like a descent to the finish. But basically, I feel like this is it for today's stage. There weren't any juicy interviews after or any sort of things like that. We did get an update from Armansman. He did lose, a bit of his tooth. He kind of, looks beat up, like he has a black eye, and a guy just was involved in an absolute horrible crash. But I am happy to see that he's okay. So glad because, I was so worried for him. He even said that he was out for a few hours, which is just so scary. I thought, wow, I don't know. I cannot even imagine how his family was feeling then. But that is it for today's stage. I know this was a bit of a messy kind of recap of the stage, but I wasn't supposed to be doing this. I was kind of just supposed to talk about it. I feel like Remco did what he could have today, kind of. I feel like him doing his own pace in the front, not really responding to the Kuss attacks, kind of, maybe doing some harder pushes, maybe like after, every now and then, and kind of doing his own pace was perfect because I didn't feel like he could have done a lot today. The stage was not that kind of type of stage for him to be doing any other things, so I feel like he did what he could have today. Really happy for Kuss that he's in the red jersey. Really excited for Primož that he won today's stage. And tomorrow we have not... Of course, tomorrow is another mountaintop finish. And also, I'm just going to talk about the jerseys. I feel like this is the logical thing to talk about the jerseys. Lenny Martinez is first in the young rider classification because he is 1 minute and 30 seconds behind Remco. The King of the Mountains is still Sepulveda. He's at 21 points with Remco at 20 points, so only 1 point behind. If he wants to keep the jersey, maybe he should, go into some... I was surprised he didn't go into the breakaway today. I think he wasn't in the breakaway. Maybe I'm talking shit, but I don't feel like he was in the breakaway today. Kitten Groves is still in the green jersey, of course, and with a pretty big lead. He has 158 points with Vendrame second on 66 points. So, yeah, I feel like his green jersey is safe for now. And the red jersey, like I said, Kuss, really excited for him. Really, really happy for the guy. Tomorrow's stage is also another mountaintop finish, but it's not as difficult as today was. I feel like it's, we have a mountaintop finish, but it's not as difficult as today. Like, they were not doing as much climbing before, all that. Probably a bit easier to kind of control and predict. So I'm really excited for tomorrow. There's a really good place for a breakaway to form. I can see now on the profile. A bit of a kick up there. Maybe a breakaway could do something there, and it would be not as hard to breakaway when you're a rider trying to... I'm saying the word breakaway so much, but kind of the breakaways, like the group, like the breakaway, the group, and the breakaway is like the act of breaking away. I'm sounding so crazy. I know, but and also the free. I'm like, I've been talking about this TT for so long now. It is coming up. Let's see what's gonna happen on that TT. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, not watching. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and I feel like I'm gonna do an episode tomorrow. I probably should. If I don't, I'm probably gonna maybe do one on Monday morning or something like that. But if not, either way, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, me kind of rambling about without any notes or preparation. I don't, write down what I'm gonna say, but I might like this, maybe like Almeida 22Ks, and I remember what I meant, but I didn't have that today. I just kind of had my own thoughts in my own head, and thank you so much for listening either way, and I hope to see you tomorrow for tomorrow's stage if I do make a podcast, because maybe some things are gonna happen, maybe some time gaps. I don't know. I feel like everyone's gonna take it easy before the TT. They know how important it is with a guy like Remco against you. So, yeah. Thanks so much. for like the fifth time for listening to today's pod, and see you tomorrow.